Winter. Is it the most difficult of seasons? Or simply the least forgiving? Welcome to Strip Coverlet, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Fort, and we are here for another poetry discussion, which will take place in two separate playlists here on the channel. Number one being the poetry discussion playlist, now approaching 600 videos strong, but number two being the Reading in a Winter Wonderland playlist here on the channel, which will be literature of the winter in December 2024. So consider reading along with that playlist on the channel as well. The poem in question today is known as The Snowman by Wallace Stevens, and it reads as such. One must have a mind of winter to regard the frost and the boughs of the pine trees crusted with snow, and have been cold for a long time to behold the junipers shagged with ice, the spruces rough in the distant glitter of the January sun, and not to think of any misery in the sound of the wind, in the sound of a few leaves, which is the sound of the land, full of the same wind that is blowing in the same bare place, for a listener who listens in the snow, and nothing himself beholds, nothing that is not there, and the nothing that is. So I think in order to get some type of grasp, some type of purchase on this poem, I think we have to take into consideration the first full statement that's made. One must have a mind of winter to regard the frost and the boughs of the pine trees crusted with snow, and have been cold a long time to behold the junipers shagged with ice, the spruces rough in the distant glitter of the January sun, and not to think of any misery in the sound of the wind. Just to make that simpler, one must have a mind of winter to regard the frost and the boughs, and have been cold a long time, and not think of any misery in the sound of the wind. That is essentially the statement that's being made there. You have to have a mind of winter to take in the winter and not have any pity. You must be of resolute and sound mind, at least as far as how that pertains to a winter mindset, to take in all of the excruciating cold, to hear it, to see it, to feel it, and not think with pity on anything. That's the statement that's being made at the beginning of this poem. A mind of winter. Is this a mind of naked survivalism? Is this a mind of getting through, getting past, getting yours? Is this a mindset of survival? Is this a mindset, therefore, of detachment? Is this a mindset of clarity? All of these things kind of come into play when you think of being able to take in harsh conditions. You have to be of a winter mind to feel all of this cold and not think with pity of the misery that surrounds you when you hear the wind. That wind, that same wind that cuts through you, cuts through everyone. That same wind that cuts through you, cuts through everything. You have to be of a winter mind for that not to bother you. If you take your sort of lackadaisical and sympathetic, empathetic mindset into the cold, you will feel sorry for every squirrel in the trees. You will feel sorry for every bird that hops along the ground, for every stray cat, and guess what? You will find ruin. Now, I do not believe it is any coincidence that this poem is titled The Snowman. The snowman is not talking about a person constructed of big snowballs. No. What this is talking about is the person about whom this poem is written is cold as ice, does not think with pity on those things surrounding him in the cold. Who is that has that kind of clarity, that has that kind of detachment? But it almost personifies the winter itself. This statement here, one must have a mind of winter. If we just... that right there, one must have the mind of winter. That's kind of what it's saying. You must be in your mind as winter is in its mind. You must be in the winter state of being. So who is this person that has a mind of winter? Who is this person that is able to hear all of the sounds of winter surrounding him? To know winter fully and wholly, and not care, not have the feelings of pity on anything around him. Who is that? Is that the type of person about whom you should write poetry? I don't know that we get these poems about other seasons. I don't know that we get these poems of stark reality about other seasons. This is a poem of being unforgiving. Certainly you have sentiments of that with the summer, but there's life all around you in the summer. Certainly there are hints of having to be tough to get through the summer. But I don't know that anyone ever makes the argument that you can't have pity for those things around you in the summer. What about the spring? I can't think of a single person who makes a rough estimate of the spring. And the fall, sometimes it gets a bit of a bad rap from the idea that the winter is coming, but that's not the fall itself. One must have a mind of winter to regard the frost and the boughs of the pine trees crusted with snow, and have been cold a long time to behold the juniper shagged with ice, the spruces rough in the distant glitter. None of that makes sense. That's not a complete thought. None of it makes sense until we get to this. You have to be heartless. So by doing that, by putting that statement where it is, we have a declarative statement, one must have a mind of winter. Then we have the description of the winter. All of the things that we're talking about when we actually talk about the winter. The frost, the boughs, the pine trees, the snow, the juniper shagged with ice. And then we have the merciless statement, which is the sound of the land, full of the same wind, that is blowing in the same bare place. The poem is saying this barrenness, this detachment, nature itself is detached during the winter. You have to be in tune with nature itself to survive it. You have to be in tune with nature itself to survive nature. That is the winter. We do not get this argument for any other season, at least so far as I know. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. There's poetry every Monday, and I hope to have you back for the next one.